We got some special guests here today. So we've got Malcolm and Malcolm Gosling from Goslings Rum. And it is a great pleasure to hear your family story, the accidental immigration in 1806 to Bermuda, and all of the history that you carried along on this tiny island to create what is one of the most namesake brands out there in the rum category.
We also got into a lot of the rich history. We also saw how it is that you guys brilliantly preserve your legacy and rich history, and also evolving with the times, with digital marketing, social media.
Family history, entrepreneurship, great stories. I look forward to everybody out there listening to the full podcast. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy it. Get down to Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama, wherever, but really Bermuda.
Bermuda,
don't
Bahama,
start. Yeah. All right, we're cutting. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. You got a new podcast coming up here with Go With Your Palate. We got Chris Rubio, a.k.a. Fat Mario, myself, Joe Wagner. But the special guests today are the Gosling family. So Malcolm and Malcolm Gosling. And Junior and Senior, yeah. And you guys brought an array of some of the spirits you make, and you guys have such a rich history. But I first think we should just start off by talking about your creation, your family's creation of the Dark and Stormy, and I'd say one of the things that helped put rum on the map.
Yeah.
But can you where did the name come from? Just to get started, because it's a beautiful presentation of a drink.
Shortly after the First World War, the British Navy was stationed in Bermuda. And they actually brought ginger beer. They introduced ginger beer to Bermuda. They used it for all sorts of things. Seasickness. Yeah. Anything else. And it took the locals a very short time to figure out that the British Navy's ginger beer tastes really good with the local rum, which was Gosling's Black Seal. And legend has it, it was a dark and stormy night. And all of these sailors were crowded up at the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club ordering these rum and ginger beers. And this one sailor ordered a rum and ginger beer and was served a drink that the bartender forgot to pour the rum in. So it was just a glass of ginger beer like what you're having.
Yeah.
The sailor noticed immediately it didn't have any rum, piped up, pour some rum in my drink, and he poured it. And you can't really see it now because we mixed it up, but the rum just sits on top perfectly. And the sailor looked at it and said, "That looks like a storm cloud and either a fool or a dead man would sail under." Followed by, "Barkeep, I'll take another Dark and Stormy." And the name obviously stuck, and it's now Bermuda's national drink. We don't even have a national anthem. National anthem.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Priorities.
National drink works. And so one thing that I think many people are not aware of is that to call it a Dark and Stormy, it needs to be made with Gosling's Black Seal Rum. And this is the starting point.
And ginger beer.
And ginger beer.
It doesn't specifically name the ginger beer, but it's Gosling's Black Seal Rum and ginger beer.
But you guys were able to formulate a ginger beer specifically to pair with your rum.
We did.
So you guys got the perfect
Dark and Stormy.
There you go. Yeah. All right. It's a good way to go about it.
We tried promoting the Dark and Stormy in the U.S. By using another ginger beer, and the concept of ginger beer was very difficult to get across because it's not a common mixer, or at least it wasn't back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
When we really tried to step up the promotion. And then when we used another type of ginger beer, since it didn't go with the package of the rum, it was very difficult for people to put two and two together. Which one do I get? How do I get it? So we came out with this in 2009, Gosling's Stormy Ginger Beer. And you can see by the label, the Black Seal and the label of the ginger beer, it's obvious which one to mix to make a Dark and Stormy.
Yeah, make it perfect.
Yeah. So the refreshing zip of ginger. That's what you got there, right?
So ginger beer, because I kind of grew up in the era of pre-ginger beer when I was younger. And then the first one started hitting the market. I'd say it was like mid-2000s. We started seeing it. And honestly, it was a little confusing at first.
Yeah.
Where you're thinking ginger ale, ginger beer, what's the difference? And then you taste them, and you definitely get more of a pop of ginger, a little less sugar than ginger ale. And I think it's more true ginger soda product. Right?
Yeah.
And so you guys had to struggle with just that education piece alone.
Yes.
Where if somebody walks into a bar and says, "I'll take a dark and stormy," they're probably going to get some crap like Myers over Canada Dry. That could happen.
That could happen. That has happened.
That's unfortunate.
I know.
But
A very bad bartender.
Yeah. And it's so with the ginger beer though, yes, you can have some that are like a sweet, flat ginger ale to the other end of the spectrum where it's opaque and so spicy
Yeah.
that it burns your throat that, the second sip, you're pretty well done.
Yeah.
So we really worked on that for about 8 months before we figured out this is the ultimate dark and stormy. That perfect combination of spice and sweetness.
It's got it.
Yeah.
It's got it.
So there you go.
Well, I gotta say, I spent a lot of years bartending throughout LA. A lot of the swanky places and mixology was booming, and it was all about the craft cocktail. And no matter where I went, though, when it came to the dark and stormy, it was Goslings that you had to be using for it to be like correct.
That is awesome.
The legit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and ginger beer, of course. And I think like we've noted, there's more of the spicy notes to it, and the fermentation that goes on with ginger beer, and ginger ale is just like I got the shivers when you're talking about ginger ale being mixed with Goslings, because that's like I just imagine the snake gun. It's,
That's right. With the syrup. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we mentioned like you have that trademark, right? Like
For the dark and stormy,
for
yeah.
the dark and stormy. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's one of only 3 trademark cocktails, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got it on that early.
We did.
Yeah.
It was in the 70s when we actually registered the trademark in Bermuda, and then probably 81 or 80 in the U.S.
Yeah. That's an important thing I think that a lot of people don't realize is when you create a name, obviously brand names, people think of it, Goslings, Coca-Cola, whatever it is, that you want to protect that so it doesn't get carried, especially if it's a unique name or a family name. But being able to have something that is truly identifiable, you would want to protect that because you're the one that put the effort into it. You're the one that did the marketing of it. You're the one that built out the brand of that drink, and protecting it and rightfully getting the credit for it. I think is something that people may not realize you can do with something that's as original as a dark and stormy, even if it was a drunk sailor and a bartender messing up the first drink. There's always the first strike of a match that comes up, and then it's like, well, we can use that. Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You'll find that mistakes play a common theme in our company.
Yeah, I cannot wait to hear.
We just roll with.
I cannot wait to hear about the history because I agree with you. We are like you, family owned, family operated, and there's a lot of positives that come out of mistakes that I've seen, and love to hear some of yours. It's part of the journey, right?
Exactly.
If everything was so linear and always worked out the way you wanted, it would be really fucking boring.
Yeah. Well, existence in Bermuda was the result of a mistake. And that was my 5 greats grandfather had a liquor store in London. He wanted to expand to the New World. This is in 1806.
1806.
1806. So he chartered a boat, loaded it with 10,000 pounds sterling worth of wines and spirits. Now, the wines would have been mostly fortified wines.
Yeah.
The spirits would have been some cognac and whiskey. And being the brave guy that he was, he stayed back in London to make the voyage, and he put his son James on board instead of making the voyage, and put his son James on board. And so they took off, and because of naval blockades, they sat in becalmed seas for 96 days. Anyway, the charter ran out, literally. The boat had to go back to England to report for further orders. So James is sitting there with all this booze, and the only stop between London and Virginia, which is where he's trying to get to, is this little rock in the middle of the Atlantic called Bermuda. So he got unceremoniously dumped off in St. George's, which was the capital back then. All his cargo. The ship left, the Mercury left, And James looked around him. Rather than press on, he realized there was nobody in the wines and spirits business in Bermuda. The British Navy used it as a frequent stop because Bermuda was very strategically positioned off the east coast of the U.S. So the British Navy used it as a frequent stop. And so on December 3rd of 1806, he got a license to sell about 100 yards from where he was dumped. And so he started selling, and 2 years later, his brother Ambrose came out with the next boat. And we've been there ever since.
And at
So
that point, it was importing alcoholic beverages from all over Europe.
that's correct. And so, but then around 1850, it became very, very difficult for us to get Scotch whiskey.
Which was the most popular product, right?
Yeah. And so we started experimenting with bringing distillates up to Bermuda, aging them and blending them. And around 1850, this magical blend was developed, and they called it old rum because it tasted like fine old rum. And the only way you could get it is by going into our store with your own canister. So it's a can or a bottle, whatever. You come in, we'd fill it up right out of the barrel. So you would have this old rum, and then people wanted to start taking it back with them on the ship, as tourism started to develop around 1920. So what they did was they decided, all right, Goslings decided, well, we'll put it in bottles. What was the strongest bottles to travel with? Probably empty champagne bottles. Again, because of the British officers' mess. So we would sell them the champagne and then go down by horse and buggy, pick up the empty champagne bottles, bring them back to the plant, rinse them out, we hope, and then put the old rum in there and put a cork on the top. And there were a couple of different blends. This particular blend, old rum, was covered with black sealing wax. And so they put it on the shelf in the stores, and people just, over the years, just started saying, give me the one with the black seal, give me one with the black seal. And literally about 30 years later, my uncle Goose Gosling looked at it and says, there's nobody else calling this old rum except ourselves. So I'm officially changing the name. And so he changed the name from Old Rum to Black Seal. And he developed the barrel juggling seal logo, which is nothing more than a play on words.
Yeah.
So from about 1950 on, it became Gosling's Black Seal. So, and we continued the whole draft system, up until about 15 years ago, I think was the last time.
Jeez. And so would you charge by milliliter?
By liter.
By liter?
Yeah.
It's like just going to the gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I do love hearing that, because the bottles, I never knew that story about it coming from the reuse of champagne bottles in the early days. But they definitely have that shape.
So what would happen is, like I say, we kept it up to 15 years ago where we would have the draft, and the product would sit back at the production plant in wooden barrels, and then take it and get filled up. And my uncle Teddy Gosling at that time was running the whole production side, and so he would often, right, we would alternate Christmas dinners at our house and then his house. The whole family would go one year to the next. And whenever we were at his house, he would always have outsiders. There's some visitors, some yachtsman that was down in Bermuda that he would invite over. And it was hysterical that he would always just shock them, because he would just put a little glass. And this is stuff that was out of the bottom of the barrel. Put a glass in front of these visitors, these unsuspecting visitors, and say, tell me what you think that is. Nobody would ever guess rum. And so when I took over the production side, I'd start saying, kind of crazy that we're not developing something more. I mean, Black Seal is so wonderful and versatile, but let's create something that has a little bit more age, that, is more of a sipping product. And so we did that, and the youngest distillate in that bottle is 16 years. And that's the family reserve old rum. And so when we decided we were going to release it for the first time, it was this particular one that we did to begin with. When we decided we were going to release it for the first time, It was 2003, and it took us about 15 minutes to decide what are we going to call this product and how are we going to package it. So we just went back in our history, and so we call it Old Rum, Black Seal and Wax, and it really is a superior product. That one you're holding there is also fantastic. That is our family reserve Old Rum that then has an additional 3 years of rye barrel
Okay.
finished in a rye barrel. So that's the history. That's how Black Seal got its name.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're on 8th generation involved in the business.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and you have, I know you have a couple kids, so 9th is coming up in a
9th is coming
maybe a
up, and they
decade or
don't have a
two.
choice. They
Yeah.
have to get into it. So-
They're stuck on a rock in the
yeah,
Atlantic,
exactly.
surrounded by rum and a family full of experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah. They'd be
Yeah.
idiots to not get involved.
Right. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I don't know about you, but I was always given a choice. Like,
Yeah.
do whatever you want. I was going to play for the Red Sox, and then that didn't work out. And but I always loved it. And seeing him, like you were saying, he was really the first one to start exporting. So like it was a whole different side of the company, and it was so new. And seeing that firsthand really just interests me, and couldn't wait to get into it.
Yeah.
So even though I was always given a choice, I was always going to do it.
Yeah.
I was always going to get into it.
I think it's good to get out and experience other things, the other
Yeah.
places and all that. But there's something I think beautiful about being involved in the family business that has these different facets. Like, you guys have the production side, right? There's institutional knowledge
Right.
that
Right.
you can only gain from just working. I mean, my dad used to always refer to it as learning through osmosis.
That's correct.
Mhm.
And it was just like, be around, and you'll start picking these things up, and then start asking questions, and then start producing your own stuff, and go screw up over there. But once you've kind of shed all the crap that the craziness off, come back and we can do this.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see that there are still a number of businesses out there like yours, especially in the spirits world, where consolidation, we see it in wine.
Right.
I see it in spirits. It's just happening way too fast, and the route to entry for new people seems to be getting harder. So you don't have a lot of ground up innovation.
Absolutely.
But you guys continue to innovate as well. I mean, when did you guys bring the rye finish out?
So that was about
A year ago.
1 year ago, actually, that we put it in that pack. We actually have a private club in Bermuda that came over, selected their own barrel, and we call it Centennial Rum to celebrate their 100th anniversary. But yeah, to offer widely on a commercial basis, it was about a year ago. And the Spirited Seas, the one over there, that's another product that this is in its 3rd year now, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting.
Yeah, this one was kind of born out of COVID times.
Okay.
So I was living in New York at the time, and my wife and I went down to Bermuda thinking it was going to be like a week of like New York being shut down, go back, stayed with my parents, and it ended up being 3 months, which was great. I had a great time. And
I'm looking over at
but we
Malcolm.
got-
See if he has a good time.
Was this your entry into the family business, or you were already working?
No, I was working for the family
Okay, so you're
business in
doing
New
export,
York.
okay.
But yeah, no, I mean it was just great to, have his undivided attention for 3 months.
I bet. Yeah.
Bounce some ideas off of him. But yeah, it was around in the middle of that, right? So like March.
Towards the end, yeah.
Or
But yeah.
towards the end, we had just got these once used but in perfect condition bourbon barrels, American White Oak, 60 of them, and our facility in Bermuda right now is completely full. Like we can't store any more barrels. We're right to the roof, and so one morning we're having coffee and kind of debating like where we're going to expand this barrel warehouse and where we're going to put these 60 barrels. We had an idea of the liquid that we were going to put into these barrels, and it was similar to the Black Seal blend, but a little bit older, had some older distillates in it, and we're like debating, I'm like, you got a big lawn, like why don't you just build something? Like, I'm not building a barrel warehouse in my lawn.
It's only 60 barrels.
Yeah, I'm like, come
Wow.
but at that same time, we're watching the Oleander, which is a container ship, which is also called the lifeline of Bermuda because Gosling Rum is pretty much our only export. We import everything else, and it goes from New Jersey to Bermuda every single week. And so that ship is going out of the Hamilton Harbor. I go, why don't we just put them on there and leave them? He goes, not a bad idea. I'm from there, and I don't think you could do this anywhere in the world but Bermuda. I mean, we're really good friends with the container ship company family.
Yeah,
We're also their
the-
largest
if
customer
you're the
because
expert.
we're the only thing sending full containers on the way out. And he loved the idea. And what did he tell you? He's like, you work on Bermuda Customs.
He goes, you work Bermuda Customs, we'll take care of you. Because to leave the container on there as it goes into port and go back out again. I mean, that's something that's just not usually done, right? Everything has to come off.
Yeah.
So we got agreement. You know, the tags are right there. It's down in the hold. So we worked on Bermuda to allow it to go back in the U.S. So for over a year, it goes back. And when you're going from Bermuda to New Jersey, you're for one leaving a subtropical climate going into, especially in the winter. I mean, it's the change in temperature is pretty extreme. So you have the expansion of the alcohol, contraction in the cold, and then you're going across the Gulf Stream, which can be incredible. Believe me, I've sailed it. Incredibly rough. Storms come out of nowhere in that Gulf Stream, right? And so you have the sloshing and everything else. So you have the expansion, contraction. And so it's kind of like accelerating the age of the product.
It's extreme aging.
Yeah.
Extreme aging.
And in a year, it was remarkable. You know, the 3 barrels that we kept back and then the other barrels that we put on, remarkable the difference.
I wanted to ask you if you kept it control.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And
that's
the
awesome.
color alone was dramatically different.
Yeah. As soon as
Right?
we pour
So
it,
just
we
being
can
So
tell.
these are all
into the wood
charred.
fibers
Right.
and sucked out, and
It's hard to put a number on it, like what that sort of aging equated to, but like at least 5 years within a year. And it's so different too. I mean, just exposed to all the different elements.
and you said in once used bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
American white oak.
Yep.
So we took one sip of it, and we already had, like, again, this product was already kind of thought of before. Like, we needed something to sit in between Black Seal and our Family Reserve Old Rum, like price wise. And so that was always the plan for it. My dad took one sip. He was like, "That's way more expensive than a $59 bottle of rum." I'm like, "Well, it's staying 50." He's like, "Well, this will be the most expensive 50. Or this will be the best $59 bottle." I'm like, "All right, do you not want that?"
But it was also making the proof, right? So we started at 80 proof, right? We broke it down because these were full proof in the barrels. And it just was too smooth. And it was 83 and 86, all too smooth. When you're drinking this with a big cube of ice, for instance, you want to know that you're drinking a spirit.
Yeah.
So at 88, we figured that was the perfect.
So you got enough of the spice
Yeah.
to hit really.
Right. Enough of the
I can
the
only
body.
imagine. So full proof when you're aging in barrel, because I mean alcohol is a solvent, so it really can get a lot of stuff out real quick, especially at high proof. What are you going into barrel at?
So with those, we went into barrel at about 68%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, based on the color, I'd imagine it came out like black as molasses.
It was very dark.
Yeah.
And when you compared it with the barrels back in the, that were just left back in the warehouse.
Yeah.
It was remarkable how different. But also the flavor. And it's just so much fuller and more mature, right? And with that oak, but not too much. It's really a perfect product. So then the next year we put 2 containers on there. And so
120
that,
barrels.
yeah. So,
all 20 foot containers, right?
yeah, you can only fit 60 barrels in each one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So That's it.
I just think it's awesome how beautifully threaded you are in the culture of Bermuda, because like I think I mentioned to you, like the only thing I knew about growing up was the Beach Boys song
Yeah.
Kokomo.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I just
God,
knew,
yeah.
and I knew it was a paradise. I knew I wanted to go. You know, I was like,
Yeah.
Bermuda, Bahamas. I don't know what I'm singing. I want to go. Hopefully someday. And it's just great because I know that there's stories like, I mean, you have, for example, the point I'm trying to make is like the fish chowder that Bermuda is known for.
Well, Black
Everything.
Seal is kind of synonymous with Bermuda, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it even back when it was old rum. So, like you say, with the culinary culture, without a doubt, obviously with the cocktail culture, but the Bermuda fish chowder is made with copious amounts of Black Seal, but then it gets cooked off, and Bermuda is owned like that. So no matter where you go to in Bermuda, and you order a bowl of Bermuda fish chowder, you will get a cruet set where one of the cruets will be filled with sherry that's been steeped, has hot pepper steeped in it, and then you have Gosling's Black Seal Rum in the other one, and you add your own. And if that's at the finest restaurant, that's at the most economical restaurant. That's what you do with Bermuda fish chowder. My wife uses it in cheese fondue. I mean, it's just so
I'm gonna have to try
plentiful.
that in the fondue, but I got to get down to Bermuda and I got to try.
You do.
I got to try this chowder.
Yeah, it takes to make it correctly, it takes about 18 hours. So
Okay.
it does. And then it's also, there's no freshwater supply in Bermuda other than rainwater. There are no natural lakes or anything like that. So all our roofs are white sandstone slate, right? That are put on there, cement washed, and then painted white, and we catch the water on our roofs. And it goes down into a cistern underneath each and every building, right? And then it gets pumped back up to the tap,
Okay.
into the showers. So the roof is besides keeping us dry, is extremely important to our survival. So this started well over 100 years ago. Whenever that stage of a construction project, commercial or residential, where the roof got put on, they would stop and have what they call a roof wetting ceremony, where they get up and they christen it with now Gosling's Black Seal Rum. It started back when it was called Old Rum, and then they have a roof wetting party, and there you go.
You sound like you know how to live out there. That's awesome.
So we use it, cook it, we pour it down the drain, and we use it in cocktails. Yeah.
And so, all of these things have just evolved over the lifespan of Bermuda. Was it uninhabited island prior to?
It was discovered in 1609. You had some, you had Portuguese and Spanish.
All the sailing cultures.
Sailing, that came by and didn't claim it, didn't want it. But in 1609, the UK sent to, a convoy to save the people that were starving in Jamestown. So they sent it over, and in a hurricane, one ship called the Sea Venture got separated from the rest of the convoy and ran aground because Bermuda has the most northerly coral reefs in the world. And the island is completely surrounded by coral reefs. So it ran aground, and so George Summers and his crew from the Sea Venture got ashore. They ended up making it, if you can believe it, made their replica ship and got off that way a few years later, but claimed it for England. And to this day, we're still a dependent territory of Britain.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
That's great history. I mean, so did they teach this in school?
Oh, yeah.
You guys go through the whole history of the island?
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah.
And it's those northerly coral reefs which surround the island made for a ton of shipwrecks.
Oh, yeah. And so it's great scuba diving there if you like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Lots
actually-
of wrecks.
And they called Bermuda Devil's Isle back before it was Bermuda because there were so many shipwrecks and the livestock would swim onto land, and it was mainly like hogs and mainly hogs. And so ships would go by Devil's Isle because they knew that there was a ton of shipwrecks and that you could get into a shipwreck really easily, and that all you could hear was the squealing of these hogs on this island.
That's frightening.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a product in there somewhere. I just don't know it.
Yeah,
Don't know where.
it'll come to you.
The pig squeal.
The big squeal.
It'll come to you. There are some brands out there that I'm surprised that they are getting away with some of the names that they use.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So then the other one that we have there is our most exclusive
Like you're
rum.
about to say your pride and joy.
Well, whatever.
This named
Is
after
it
you.
So
Papa?
Papa Seal. Papa Seal. You
Papa
tell
Seal.
us.
No, it's you.
So
Oh, the nickname Papa
Yeah.
Seal. So I went to high school in Boston, or just outside of Boston, and my nickname was Seal, that my friends gave me because I have an amazing singing voice. And,
yeah.
but these guys from Boston just called him automatically. They go, Papa Seal, and the nickname just stuck even to like now in the office. Everyone calls him Papa Seal, and
So we have
I like it.
we put down 15 barrels that we had treated. It's a secret how I treated these barrels, and then this wonderful blend, which is different than any of the other products there, and let it sit. And this reached its peak after about 15 years of age.
In those same
And-
barrels the entire time.
Not in the same barrels the whole time. So
Okay.
it would be probably about 6 years finishing in the barrels that it's in. But
Okay.
it was aging prior. So what I'm saying is 15-year-old distillates in there. And then about 6 years in those barrels that were specially treated. And this is before Malcolm had the idea of putting it on the oleander, the product on the oleander. So I would have the guys in the plant at least once a week roll the barrels. So it was always in contact with all the wood, and it's called Papa Seal. Very, very limited, all hand done, hand filled, hand labeled, and it has your name, Joseph, on there.
Oh,
Joseph
geez.
Wagner, and so that's for you, brother.
Well, thank you very much. I got to say, I've never seen this bottle for
Yeah,
obvious reasons.
There isn't enough, so we sell most of what we're able to produce a year in Bermuda.
Well, thank you
I
very
think
much.
there may be 40 cases, I think, were sent last year.
Oh wow.
Jeez.
to the U.S.
Yeah.
Oh, very special. I'm looking forward to trying this.
Oh, it's super good.
I feel like he's gonna be walking around the office now wanting to be called Papa Joe.
You are
He's
Papa Joe,
official.
man. It suits you.
Yeah.
Papa Joe does suit you.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of kids, but yeah, they want to wait till I'm a grandfather. Oh, very cool. So
That's awesome.
one thing, number one, that they're all beautiful products, great packaging, well-known brand, but the rum category is so vast.
It
I mean,
is.
the amount of where you can make it, the different styles and types of rum. I mean, once you dig into it, it's actually quite absurd. So you're
You're
really
right.
you're really relying upon your provenance, your history, the pedigree that you've created with these brands, and maintaining the integrity of them over now over 2 centuries. But when you look at the competition that you have to deal with, you're looking beyond rum. You're looking at brown spirits in general. You're looking for that. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah. But you're also trying to, within that very vast category, which is 100% correct and well put, it is a massive category, the rum category. And because there is no real governing body and there are so many different areas that can be produced, people never gave it the respect that many fine aged rums deserve.
Ah.
And you have such a bunch of flavored rums, spice rums, all that sort of stuff.
So this is where some regulatory body could be a positive for the alcohol world.
It could be, but it's going to be extremely difficult to do. Because it's produced in so many different locations around the globe.
I mean, I've always looked at, if you look at wine and you look at first growths in Bordeaux and that sort of thing, and they've insulated themselves to such a degree through the marketing of the specialness of those specific vineyards that they've limited their ability to grow
Right.
To a degree, but then they take price up and then they become products for the elite only, right? I don't think that's a positive way to do it, but I do think that when there is some sort of communal agreement and oversight for a category, I think that could really be beneficial. But I mean, you guys stand apart as you're Goslings Rum. Like nobody's. I
Well,
mean,
right now,
nobody's really-
exactly. Right now, the consumer is kind of that body, right?
yeah,
The consumer tastes it, either thinks you've done a good job or you haven't. It's just getting people to try and experiment with the Family Reserve Old Rum, with the rye barrel finish, with the Spirited Seas, and when possible, the Papa Seal.
yeah.
You know that right when you try those different products, you realize how special rum can be, right? And it really does come down to the blending and aging that really determines one quality over another. Yeah.
So, and how do you convey that message to, I mean, a consumer who's enthralled with the rise of whiskey? Like, I mean, that came so fast,
Mm.
and it didn't seem like there was a lot of fallout to a lot of other brown spirits. Maybe there was, but I do agree. I think rum is actually. I mean, if somebody said, "Would you like rum or whiskey served neat?" I would more often go for the rum.
Right.
It's just a smoother character.
And it's a nice aged rum. Yeah. I mean, it's just getting people. We do it through event sponsorship. We strong digital campaign.
Yeah.
And word of mouth. I mean, how we even got when we first sent our first container out of Bermuda in 1980, it was because demand was getting developed by people that visited Bermuda and then were taking the rum back home. And then we would get letters continuously, which is why I was so adamant about starting the export side. We get letters saying, how do I get Gosling's rum over here? How do I get Gosling's rum in Canada? How do I get it in the US? How do I get it? And we just had like a standard reply. Sorry, you can't. But if you have a friend coming to Bermuda, they can bring some back. And I'm just like, why are we doing this? Why not just make it a little easier to get?
I mean, that was.
But then
bad.
I understood why. Because you know what? When you have 500,000 people and you got such a big country and they come back and they scatter, yeah, it's hard to get recognition, right? And the 3-tier system is it's good for us. It allows us to play equally, I guess, but at the same time, trying to get wholesaler attention back at the beginning was really difficult.
I could imagine.
Was really difficult. So, but it was worth it. But we had all those people coming back that just spread it word of mouth. And Bermudians love to travel. I mean, it's very rare. I'm surprised I haven't run into a Bermudian on this trip yet. It's hysterical. Every time I travel, there's always somebody. There's only 60,000 of us on the island. Yeah, you run into one every time you travel because they're so well traveled. And they also take it with them, talk a lot about it
Share it.
as being the spirit of Bermuda. So,
Are there any other spirits producers out there?
no. So we get that,
Okay.
right? So that's how we get the name out. And so and then you depend on the credibility earned through the legacy, right? The history
Yeah.
of the brand. So,
And staying consistent. I mean,
And
have you
staying
been able to expand your warehouses, or have you guys kind of maintained a constant level of production for the last 10, 20 years?
Is this really the end? Unbelievable. Find out next week.